Picture this: a crackling campfire, a moonlit walk, and my boss, who's everything I've ever wanted, standing inches away, his gaze igniting a thrill that makes my heart race. Does he feel the same pull between us? Because tonight could change everything for me. It all started earlier today when we were at the office. Everybody was excited about the weekend retreat. People hustled about duffel bags, swapping jokes, and sharing tentative plans for late-night drinks by the fire. I lingered by my desk, double-checking my packing list and trying to appear nonchalant. Inside, though, I was a bundle of nerves. My boss Peter walked in, his arrival commanding the atmosphere and giving him the kind of attention only he could effortlessly pull off. His warm smile seduced us instantly, and while his laugh filled the room, I swear that his eyes found mine for one brief second. And that was enough to send a ripple of delusional fantasies through my head. A few minutes later, we were all on the company bus, and in about 2 hours, we were at the retreat location. It was idyllic, nestled with woods, many perfectly made cabins waited for us, and sunlight bathed us nicely. My colleagues got off the bus super excited, but I was a bit stiff. I was caught up in the memory of Peter encouraging me to sign up for the event, his hand lingering on my shoulder, which made my heart race since I had a crush on him since I joined the team. As we all gathered in the principal area, the team huddled around the retreat coordinator, who started listing our group pairings for the day's activities. "Johnny and Mr. Peter," he said, and it took a lot of strength on my end to not widen my eyes in surprise or nervousness. He clapped me on the back, his touch searing through my shirt, and grinned. "Looks like we're partners," he said, and I could feel my heartbeat inside my ears. Once everybody was paired, we were assigned to our cabins, which, unfortunately, I didn't share with him. 30 minutes later. We were all set for a first day exercise. Our task was to build a raft together from scratch. It was a cliche, I know, but it made us work side by side. As we knelt in the grass, tying knots and testing the sturdiness of our logs, Peter's sleeves rolled up, revealing toned forearms I couldn't stop stealing glances at. "Not bad, huh?" he said, catching me mid-stare. Yeah," I mumbled, fumbling with the ropes in my hands. I mean, a pretty solid raft. His laugh felt like a tease somehow, but as the minute passed, I noticed his attention occasionally wandering, and that's when I realized it was going to one of our team leaders, Emma, who was struggling with her team's raft. She was gorgeous, blonde, tall, with the body of a model, and besides that, she was funny and intelligent. Of course, he'd want to help her and enjoy the retreat's casual air to make some moves. Maybe. He stepped over to offer her help, his hand guiding hers on a tricky knot, his tone patient and encouraging. I knew it was just Peter being friendly, charming, and helpful, but jealousy still curled in my stomach like a restless snake, and I felt relieved when the exercise was over and we could return to our rooms. I got off without even glancing at him, delusionally hoping he would notice my huff and care. Later that night, we all gathered around a massive fire pit. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and smoke. The flames danced and crackled, casting flickering shadows over faces flushed with laughter and wine. I perched on a log a bit far from the group, enjoying the heat of the fire on my face while the cold seeped into my back. But my attention kept drifting to Peter. He stood across the circle, talking to a small group of colleagues. His smile was wide and his laugh was infectious. Then, as if he sensed my thoughts, he glanced my way. I watched him standing up and coming in my direction. He sat on the log by my side, his body close enough for his knee to brush in mine. "Enjoying yourself?" he asked, with his voice low and warm. It felt like, for a second, we were sharing a secret. I nodded. "Yeah, it's nice." He grinned, leaning in a bit more. "Nice? That's high praise coming from you." "Hey," I protested, laughing softly. "I'm capable of having fun, you know." "Sure you are," he teased. "Hey, you'd never imagine, but I was a disaster in college. Almost got expelled for setting a microwave on fire." I laughed out loud, blinking at him, completely caught off guard. "How the hell does that happen?" "Popcorn," he laughed. "Turns out there's a difference between 2 minutes and 20. I laughed again, stunned by that story. He joined in, his shoulders shaking as he replayed the chaos. His smoke alarm turned on. All my roommates started yelling at me. The principal threatening to ban microwaves forever. Everybody was so pissed at me for at least 2 months. Oh my. But soon we made up. I was too funny to be cast out, even though I was a bit of a loser. "That's impossible!" I exclaimed. He just laughed lowly. That was the kind of story that shouldn't mean anything, but once he told it, it felt like it was just for me. It felt intimate somehow. As the evening wore on, the fire began to slow down, and people drifted off to their cabins. Peter remained by my side, his attention focused entirely on me as we traded stories and quiet jokes. There was a moment when his hand lingered near mine, so close that I could feel the heat of his skin. That made me hold my breath, wondering if he did it on purpose or not. My heart thundered in my chest, my pulse loud in my ears again. But then, just as I dared to hope, he leaned back, his gaze shifting to the other side of the fire pit. He looked at Emma again, who was sitting with a few remaining coworkers. Her laugh was as pretty as her and cut through the night's quiet hum. She caught Peter's eyes and waved at him. He waved back, his expression softening. Jealousy curled in my stomach like a restless snake. I looked away, trying to suppress the feeling, but it lingered, bitter and unrelenting, even though Peter turned back to me with another easy smile. "You okay?" he asked, his tone suddenly quieter. "Yeah, why wouldn't I be?" I replied too quickly. Peter tilted his head, studying me for a moment. Then he leaned closer, his voice low. "You know, Emma's great at her job, but she's just a colleague. That's it." I blinked, caught off guard. "What?" "She needed help earlier, that's all. If I made you feel weird about it, I'm sorry." His gaze was steady, a small, reassuring smile pulling at his lips. "But the person I wanted to spend tonight with is sitting right here." I didn't know what to say. Relief flooded my chest, loosening the knot that had been there all evening. "Adorable, though, seeing you jealous," Peter teased. "Shut up," I said, laughing as I shoved his arm lightly. He chuckled softly, his warmth pressing closer to mine. "Want to take a walk with me before returning to the cabin?" he asked. "Really?" I asked, surprised. "There's a view I'd like to share with you." My heart skipped a beat again, and we stood up, walking side by side under the starlit sky. We stayed quiet for a while. The only sounds around us were our breaths, which were causing fog to form in the air and the crunch of leaves. Peter led me to a small clearing where the lake glimmered under the moonlight. We stood on the edge of the footbridge, and he turned to me with his hands in his jacket pockets, probably cold. "This is what I wanted to share with you," he said, his voice almost blending with the night. "It's beautiful. Thank you for that," I said. My focus wasn't on the lake, but on him. The way his jawline caught the light was beautiful. The way his eyes looked at the view was beautiful. He didn't respond immediately, as if gathering his thoughts. "Why did you bring me here, though?" I asked. I wasn't going to ask, but again, my mouth went first, then my brain. "Because..." He hesitated, but he took a step closer. The space between us felt impossibly charged. Every nerve in my body was alive with anticipation. "Johnny." "Yeah?" "I brought you here because it's my favorite spot ever since I came here the first time. And I shared it with you because I've been thinking a lot tonight," he said, his gaze holding mine firmly. "Thinking about you." I blinked, unsure if I heard him right. "Me?" "Yes," he smiled, but it wasn't like earlier. It was softer, almost vulnerable. "I like spending time with you. More than I should, considering," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "Considering I shouldn't be talking about this," he sighed. I didn't want to make things feel awkward, but I just can't pretend it's me just being friendly. And I have a feeling you're on the same page. Or am I wrong? My breath hitched, and I stared at him, unsure if this was some dream. "Peter, are you saying..." "I'm saying I have a crush on you, Johnny. And I'd like to know if you'd go out on a date, just the two of us." My mind raced, trying to process his words. I didn't trust myself to speak for a moment, but then slowly I managed to ask, "You're serious?" He laughed in a shy tone I've never seen. "Dead serious. But if you're not interested..." "I am," I interrupted him, stepping even closer. "I mean, I'd like it a lot." Instantly, I saw the tension eased from his shoulders. Good. We stayed there for a few more moments. The night around us was quiet. He reached out to me, his fingers brushing my face in a way that sent a shiver down my spine. I was like jello in his arms when he grabbed my waist with the other hand and kissed me. His tongue, his taste, I could melt there. Soon he broke the kiss and smiled. Let's head back. But after this week, I'll make you mine. I laughed, my cheeks burning, like I would deny that. As we walked back to the cabins, the knot of jealousy and fear that had been gripping me all evening started to loosen up, replaced by something far scarier and thrilling. Hope. The next weekend. It felt like slipping into one of his suits, sleek, tailored, and entirely too perfect. That's what I thought as I entered Peter's apartment. The place screamed polished elegance, but had a soft whisper of something like, "Don't touch anything," but not entirely intimidating. Weird, huh? The moment I saw a half-empty mug of coffee on the counter and a book tossed on the armchair, my face broke into a grin. Finally, some signs of an actual human being living. "Make yourself at home," he said from the kitchen, where he was busy? I approached and couldn't help the loud laugh. I found him, sleeves rolled up, frowning at a cutting board piled with awkwardly chopped vegetables. A streak of flour dusted his cheek. "You're trying to cook?" I teased. "Trying is indeed the word," he said, half serious, half amused, and looked at me. "Do you know how to chop onions? You run an empire, and yet onions defeat you? Delegation is my superpower." He smiled again, handing me the knife. "You're lucky I know my way around the kitchen. Already knew we were going to be a match, but this far?" He faked surprise. Rolling my sleeves, I started preparing the onions, and I could feel his gaze on me like a warm hand on my back. As I got halfway there, he leaned in closer. "It's good having you here, you know." I didn't take my eyes off the knife. "Good because I'm saving your dinner, or good because you seem to be enjoying watching me work?" He chuckled, his fingers brushing my hip. "Good because you fit, like you've always been here." That made me pause. I glanced at him, trying not to show how those words got to me. "Peter." He rolled me with only one hand and closed the gap between our bodies. My heart raced, my hands sweating. He smiled, his right hand resting politely on my waist. "I'm serious. It's been a long time since I felt this easy." I raised my eyebrows. "You're so romantic," I said, ironically, and he laughed out loud. His breath touched my skin, and I felt myself melting in his gaze. Peter brushed his lips over mine, and all I could feel was happiness. "Let me show you how much of a romantic I can be." And that's how the onions were completely forgotten. The next day, I felt his absence the second I stepped into the office. It wasn't just the lack of his voice or the usual quiet glances we started to exchange. It was the absence of his entire presence. And that made me realize how I always felt I wasn't truly alone because he was in there. He was in a meeting out of the office, and I was left to navigate the usual office tasks. The morning dragged on, the sounds of the office only making his absence feel heavier. Was that always like this? Or was I too much in love? Or too happy? Couldn't answer because my phone buzzed. I opened it discreetly. It was a message from him. "How's your morning? Also, forgot to tell you, you left your sweater here. It smells like you, so not complaining." The smile on my lips came faster than I could compel, and I quickly typed back, "Don't let that go up over your head. I just forgot it because your apartment is like a maze." His reply was almost instant. "And yet you found your way to my bed just fine." I held a laugh and shook my head. "Focus on your meeting, Mr. CEO." Seconds later, another message. Hard to focus when all I can think about is flashes of you melting in my mouth. My cheeks burned, and I quickly tucked my phone back into my pocket, cursing him in mind for getting me off the hook. I was too relaxed until a coworker passed and gave me a curious glance. I kept my expression neutral, but my heart was pounding fast. For a second, I forgot we could be caught and the consequences of that. For a second, I put my happiness in front of my caution, and that bitter feeling of insecurity was the reminder I needed. By night, I found myself sitting at his kitchen table again, the sound of his laugh chasing away the tension of the day. It didn't take flowers or grand gestures or confessions. What we had was even better. Quiet moments, shared smiles, and the thrill of us becoming something solid each day. 2 weeks later, something was wrong in my office. The rhythm had been disrupted somehow, and I had no idea why. I was working the same way, with many projects coming in, but I knew that was the same for everybody, yet there was something different in the environment. "Morning, Johnny," Emma greeted me with a sly grin as I sat my bag down at my desk. "Had fun at the retreat? I hear you and Peter got pretty close." "What? We've always been on good terms," I replied, even though my stomach dropped. "Oh, relax, I'm just teasing," she laughed, but her gaze told me otherwise. How did they notice that? He and I always talked in the corridors and little breaks. It made no sense. As I settled into my desk, I let go of the thoughts and focused on the day's tasks. But one moment, I had to go to the copy machine. Passing by the break room, I heard, "He's definitely Peter's favorite. Wonder what's really happened on that walk by the lake. Think it's why he got that big project last quarter?" My face burned, and I did what I had to do quickly. By lunchtime, I couldn't shake the wave of their stares and hushed tones. Peter seemed unaware of the storm brewing, breezing into meetings with his casual looks and charm. He caught my eye during a staff check, and his smile, even though directed at everybody, had a different aura when he looked at me, which made my chest tighten. And that little detail only made things worse. During the afternoon, I overheard two juniors whispering near the printer. "Do you really think Peter is into him, or it's just for, convenience?" I never thought Peter played for the other team, but if I were Johnny, I'd keep it professional. No one likes the office golden boy. I got off quickly, not wanting to hear more. Grabbing my nearest file, I fled to the quiet supply room, leaning against the shelves as my pulse raced fast enough to make me nauseated. It wasn't fair. I worked hard, damn hard, to get where I was. And now, everything that seemed accomplished was being tainted by these rumors, as if my late nights, missed weekends, and countless other sacrifices, like my last relationship, were being erased by a simple campfire. Plus, I know no one saw the kiss, nor knew about our dinner. The door suddenly creaked open, and Peter's head appeared. "There you are," he said, stepping in and closing the door behind him. "Not now, Peter," I said, my voice low, but he caught me off with a look. "Johnny, what's wrong?" "What's wrong?" I repeated, laughing bitterly. "Try stepping outside your office and listening to what everyone's saying about us. About me. I feel like a whore." He furrowed his brows. "What are they saying?" "That I'm your golden boy," I said, my words laced with disgust. "That I only got my projects because of your favoritism with me, and that we're sleeping together." Peter's expression darkened. "That's ridiculous. Everyone here knows you earned your place. It sure doesn't feel that way, and the way you look at me during meetings isn't helping. You must hide your feelings better." He opened his mouth to respond, but the door opened again, and Emma tried to get inside but stopped midway. "Oops, didn't mean to interrupt," she said, her grin nothing subtle. When she left, a suffocating silence went on. I turned back on him, my voice lowered now. "You see what I mean?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I do, and I'm sorry about it, Johnny. I didn't know people here would notice anything. And it's affecting me. Us. If this keeps going, they won't respect either of us." For a moment, he said nothing, his jaw tightening as he considered my words. Then he took my hand, his voice steady. "Let me handle it. I'll make it clear to everyone." "Peter, no. Please, no." "Okay," he said. "As for us, we'll figure this out together." It was a happy and innocent thought, but as I walked back to my desk, I wonder if I was making the right choice. 5 months later. For the past months, Peter's apartment had become our heaven. No matter how stressful or complicated the work was, we managed to make the gossip go away, and that set my heart at ease, even though I was still slightly worried. We had been sharing this space where we could just be us. We spent hours there, cooking together in this kitchen or collapsing onto the couch to watch movies and laugh at those who were trashy. It was a kind of comfort I never experienced with anyone before, and I didn't even know I craved it. I was feeling good until Peter opened his mouth. "I've been thinking," he began. We were sprawled in the living room, surrounded by takeout containers and a half-empty bottle of wine. I shifted when I heard him, and I dropped my chopsticks. That's never a good sign, I joked. He shot me a weak smile but didn't laugh. I hate this. I blinked, caught off guard. Hate what? Hiding. Pretending it's nothing. Act like we're strangers when all I want to do is hold your hand. Or look at you without wondering if someone's watching. His words felt like a punch. I had felt it too, but I wasn't ready to face that. You think we should just tell people? I asked cautiously. Peter gazed at me. Maybe. I don't know. It just feels wrong, and I know it's hurting us both. And I'm so proud of loving you. I froze, my heart pounding. I couldn't help but smile. What? You heard me right. I love you, he said, smiling too. I grabbed his hand above the table and caressed him softly. I love you too, I said, and his smile widened. But about being public, it's not that simple, and I'm not ready for us to pay the price that comes with it. I don't care about the price. Please, Peter, I interrupted him. Let's just wait for the right time. He looked at me, a bit hurt, and I felt guilty. And when will that be? Another 5 months? 5 years? When is the right time? We'll figure it out, I promise. Trust me, I'll think about a solution. His usual grin returned, and he got closer, kissing me softly. My fears and doubts faded for a while, leaving only us and the quiet promise of what could become. 1 month later. It was the Monday morning meeting. We had a great weekend, but I was a bit tired as we slept poorly. He was standing at the head of the table, confident and steady as always, as he outlined the quarter's goal. Then he turned on me, staring a bit longer than necessary. Before we wrap up, he said, I want to call out Johnny's exceptional proposal for the marketing campaign, which granted us the biggest deal of the year. My cheeks flushed, putting me into a mix of pride and discomfort. I could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on me. They clapped a bit before we left, and even though that was a common between good meetings, I now disliked the attention. Wow, Johnny, a coworker from HR approached me. With a praise like that, I worked very hard for that, Lisa. Oh, we know, she laughed. Could you all stop wondering about my private life? I snapped at her. I'm not sleeping my way to the top. Unlike some blonde princess we have here, why don't you pick on her instead of me? The room went silent, but the damage was done. And I didn't regret standing up for myself. The rest of the afternoon was a blur, and as the office emptied, I noticed the staring still. But now for another reason, and it was also directed a bit to Emma. I didn't feel guilty too, and that made me smile as I went to the roof, needing some fresh air and alone time. I heard the door creak open behind me, and I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Hey, Peter said softly, coming to stand beside me. Hey, my voice was flat, my eyes still on the skyline. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I'm sorry if it made you uncomfortable, but I wasn't going to let your work go unnoticed. I do that to everybody. I sighed. I know, it's okay. Actually, more than okay. Why is that? He asked. Lisa came to tease me, and I finally stood up. I honestly feel good. He gave out a big laugh. Oh, I can see the venom slipping from your mouth. We shared some low laughter and went silent again. He was tense all of a sudden. I wanted to talk to you about something, he said with a careful tone. I glanced at him, his tense expression setting my inner alarms on. What's going on? I've been transferred, he said after a little hesitation, to the West Branch. It's across the city, and I start effective immediately. Oh, I said, shocked. I requested it, but I thought I could have the week to prepare. His gaze met mine, completely confident. I figured this might make things easier for us, he smiled softly. No more whispers or awkward meetings. We can stop hiding. For a moment, the world seemed to be still. Then a warmth spread through me. Relief, hope, and maybe even excitement. Finally, I said, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Peter's smile widened, and he reached out, his fingers brushing mine in a subtle gesture that felt like a secret just for us. But I didn't care and just jumped into his arms, holding him close. Thank you, I whispered. We're going to be okay, he murmured, his voice low but certain. And for the first time in months, I believed it. The following day, everybody was buzzing because of the news of Peter's departure. The new head wasn't there yet, but we all knew he was with HR finishing the paperwork. He was standing in the break room where everybody gathered. It was a pleasure to work with all of you through these years, but now it's time for a new chapter of my life, he said, charming as ever. I could see the girls sighing, and that made me laugh a bit. He started shaking hands one by one, and everybody congratulated him for that. My stomach was a bit unsettled. It wasn't a real goodbye, not for us, but its public nature made me feel a little distant from him. All I could do was shake that off my mind. Finally, my turn arrived as I stood at the corner of the room. I took his hand and made a little joke. I thought I was going to be left out. Never, he said, though I was starting to think you'd forgotten about me. Before I could respond, I only had time to gasp because Peter had done something unbelievable. He closed the space between us, cupped my face, and kissed me. Right there, in front of everyone. People went silent for a while, then interrupted by cheers, laughter, and even a few whistles. Peter pulled back, his eyes sparkling with mischief. Now you can gossip for real, he said, laughing. See you guys. A round of applause took me off my frozen state of mind. My cheeks burned red, but I couldn't stop the smile winding down my face. Relief and happiness washed over me, the weight of our effort finally winning over the caution and pain. As Peter approached the elevators, I followed him, holding the door. Do I see you tonight? I asked if I didn't know the answer. Peter smiled. Tonight and every other night from now on. The warmth in his voice and face made me want to explode with happiness. He kissed me quickly again and added, "Oh, we should probably tell them we're house hunting." My eyes shined with amusement. Let's keep them guessing a little more. We both laughed and I released the door. Don't be late, I said, and he winked at me. As I returned to my desk, there was a new sense of peace in the air, a calmness I haven't felt in a long time. The future was uncertain, but I knew one thing for sure. We were together and focused on the same goal. Everything was falling into place, and that public declaration felt like the cherry on top. Things like house hunting, adjusting to the new routine, and whatever would come felt lighter now. And I knew that it was because, no matter what would come next, we had each other. And that, in the end, was all I needed to know. The news about Peter and me dating was the top gossip in the office, soon followed by the news that we were living together. The only difference was, instead of making me anxious, the gossip now only made me blush. The very same blush that I feel now as I write all their names on the list of the invitation to our wedding 7 years later. Who would have thought I would be marrying my boss in front of my coworkers one day? The end. After their kiss in front of everyone, do you think Johnny will ever feel this same way about hiding his love again? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.